following a shooting on Friday night at a home in Melbourne. When officers arrived on the scene in the 900 block of Poplar Lane, they found 3 gunshot victims inside that house. That was the 2 adults and the child. Officials say the adults were taken to the hospital in critical condition. However, the child died at the scene of the shooting. The child and the 2 adults are, at least one of the adults is related to the child, according to police. Investigators have not yet released any details on the events that could have led up to the shooting at this point. So I know they're going to be talking again later on today, giving some more information. But yeah, quite the mystery it seems right now.
Yeah, and today we did hear the child has been identified as Bles'Syn Lightner. That's the 2-year-old who was killed. Here's a little bit of what police had to say at a briefing earlier today.
When you insert a 2-year-old child like Bles'Syn Lightner, it summons an extra level of energy that, takes them to that next level of trying to determine what happened. And they are physically, mentally affected by these things. Our police officers, our investigators, their parents, their aunties, their uncles, they identify these situations with their own family, which makes it difficult on them emotionally, physically, and it also gives them that level of energy to seek out and determine what happened, and that drive to give it that extra effort.
I said, giving it that extra effort because that 2-year-old was involved. Just a tragedy, and like you said, there really hasn't been a whole lot that has been released. We've no suspects still identified. Police aren't saying anything about the circumstances. Really, kind of being tight-lipped at this point.
Which is always surprising in a case like this. So they haven't said there's somebody on the loose out there. So we know that one. So.
Right.
All right. Next up here, crosswalks are still center stage here in Florida, as Governor Ron DeSantis made a stop in the Orlando area this morning. Now, the governor was here to talk about fentanyl, but ended up addressing the recent arrest outside the Pulse nightclub site. Dozens of crosswalks have been painted over all across the state, but the Rainbow Crosswalk in Orlando and a similar one, a Pride Walkway down in Delray Beach, are the ones generating the most pushback right now. FDOT sent a letter to the city of Delray Beach saying that the markings on the street there are a violation of FDOT's updated traffic control standards. The attorney with Delray Beach says that under constitutional home rule, the city is entitled to keep the pavement markings because they do not interfere with the flow of traffic. Thus, they don't fall under the traffic control device ordinance. However, the state directed its removal, saying it is unconstitutional right now. The governor had a lot to say about this today and wasn't really backing down.
I've approved a lot of money for a Pulse memorial. Where is it? Why haven't they gotten that done? A lot of money has been frittered away over the years. I think I'm certainly supportive of an actual fitting memorial for people that were murdered that day. One of the most horrific mass killings in American history. Yeah, I've approved a lot of money for that over the years. But that's not for some crosswalk. That's not to do those other things that are different from state law. So look, what I will say is this: most places in Florida, 95%. And there were other things that were marking before this bill went in. We had Blue Lives Matter, which, I've been supportive of that. But, we're not going to use our roads for that, right? And so hang up a flag, do what you want on your building, your house, however you want to do it. But we're not going to be doing that on our state roadways.
So it was the governor earlier today, and you mentioned Delray Beach, one of the localities that's fighting this. They had that hearing earlier today, which was actually also in the Orlando area, and the state-imposed deadline that they were supposed to fix that is by tomorrow. And we know the judge had asked for some things, some final orders for Friday, and the representatives for Delray Beach said, well, hey, that's past the deadline, where the state's going to come in and paint this, and the state said, we won't come in and paint it, at least until Friday. So we'll see what happens with that challenge.
From a legal standpoint, could cause a real issue, because if the state rules in favor, the judge rules in favor, then what happens to all the other ones have already painted over? So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
All right, a special election taking place today in Orange County for 2 vacant seats, and that includes House District 40 and Senate District 15. Now, the reason for these is this woman right here. Okay, she recently passed away, and so now Geraldine Thompson right there, that's the woman you saw. She died earlier this year. She had served in the legislature for about 20 years. So that seat became open. Now we have Republican Willie Montague and Democrat LaVon Bracey Davis. They're on the ballot for the Senate seat. That area covers, Winter Garden, Apopka, Zellwood over in there. Now, Republican Tuan Lee and Democrat Rashawn Young also on the ballot for the House seat, and that's opening up because of Davis, who is running for the Senate. So it all goes back to this woman, like I said right there, Senator Geraldine Thompson. So again, that House seat then covers the areas of College Park, Pine Hills, Rosemont, and Decoy. About 15,000 people cast early ballots in this one, so it's generating quite a bit of interest for a special election. But yeah, I mean, you had a family battle here. You've had a lot go on in this race already, and I think that's why it's getting so much attention. Because normally these off-year special elections don't get this much attention. This one has generated a lot of controversy.
It has, and I talked about it earlier with Kimberly Leonard, who is a reporter for Politico Florida and the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter.
And these are two very safe Democratic seats, so that should give Democrats a little pep in their step, probably. They can expect to win these seats. It would be, extremely unexpected if they were not to. But what happened was, sadly, State Senator Geraldine Thompson passed away earlier this year, and so her seat became available, and it was actually the primary that was a very sort of fraught. Multiple Democrats were running. There was the eventual nominee, State Representative LaVon Bracey Davis, was also running against her brother, so it was kind of this family feud situation.
So pretty safe Democratic seats, according, as far as expected. But you never know. Polls are open until 7 o'clock, so about 3 more hours.
And if you really want to do a fascinating read, look into how all these people are connected. You've got family, you got people who grew up together, they went to church together. One dies, then you got the brother and sister. It's fascinating theater there. So we'll know more about that one after the election shuts off tonight at 7. All right, 5-year-old boy had quite the fast food adventure. He ended up in a Chic-Fil-A right here. Now, this is pretty interesting. It happened up in the Jacksonville area. According to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, officers got an unusual call on the morning of June 24th, saying a child had walked into a Chic-Fil-A on San Jose Boulevard all by himself. Officers gave the boy a ride back to his family's house. He even gave him directions on how to get back there. So they started looking into this. They say this house is the most secure house on the block. It hasn't been. There's a boy, by the way. He just went out for some Chick-fil-A, went walking.
I can't blame him.
Yes, no, man, hey, you know what? He made it quite a ways, too. Okay, so they talked to the boy's parents, make sure there wasn't anything suspicious going on here. They found that the boy had just unlocked the front door, squeezed through the gate, and walked to Chick-fil-A. Now, it's a funny story. It could have been a very tragic story as well, a little dude like that walking all the way there. But they say this is a good reminder that it doesn't matter how old your kids are, what size they are. You got to be on the lookout for him, because this kid knew exactly how to get out of the house, and so I think that's what has them putting out this video.
But it was also good because they said, he knew where he lived. He was able to tell officers that he knew the way home. He knew how to get there, because apparently he and his parents live close enough to that Chick-fil-A that they did walk there together sometimes.
Well,
So
I'm telling you
good
right
that
now,
he knew as well.
At 5 years old, because my 22-year-old, if she doesn't have GPS going right now, she can't drive to the front of our neighborhood and back without getting lost. So good job by that kid.
Hey.
Knowing, can you imagine if these went away, by the way, just an aside? Like,
Yeah.
This generation.
So reliant on them.
Can't get to Publix.
Yeah.
Which is the front of our neighborhood. Sad.
I get on my wife for typing in GPS. I'm like, you know how to get there. Just
Right.
like sometimes you use it so much as a crutch.
Right, it becomes a crutch. Right.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. You're looking
Yep.
at the GPS. So good thing that kid knows.
Yes, and hey, if you're gonna wander away, Chick-fil-A not a bad place
right.
to be. It
That's
looks
where
like
I'm
he was
going.
getting taken care of.
Just don't go on Sunday.
That's right. John, we appreciate you joining
Sure.
us for our Top 4 at 4. We're gonna take a break and we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer is walking into the frame any minute now. Fashionably late, and we appreciate TJ you joining us on this Tuesday afternoon here for Fox 35 News Plus. Better late than ever.
That's always the best philosophy, right? It's like a party. You come in, you're fashionably late. You always put the fashionable before. It makes it seem that much better, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, we're not starting this weather segment without you, because I'm certainly no expert. So it's your world. We're just living in it.
Hey, you know what, Garrett? I love that. Thank you. I'm just happy that we had a little bit of sunshine despite the Labor Day weekend looking kind of gloomy. I felt bad that it was it wasn't the prettiest Labor Day weekend across Central Florida.
It wasn't. It was a bit of a bummer, and I'm sure especially so for all those tourists who we know were in town for it. But things have cleared up a little bit today. We definitely saw more sunshine out there, even though we have seen our typical showers and storms today as well.
Yeah. I mean, today it's been really focused a little closer to the coast, Garrett. We had that area of low pressure still sitting and spinning just to our east. That's kind of been driving the threat for these showers closer to the eastern side of Florida versus the Gulf Coast. But I do think eventually this area of low pressure is going to work away from us, and we'll get more into a typical sort of pattern for this time of the year with that onshore flow coming in on the East Coast side versus more of a dominant west to southwesterly wind. Right now on Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, we can see a couple of sprinkles that have been working through the eastern half of the Fox 35 viewing area. We've seen a couple of these closer to Orange County. There's one hugging the beach line right now, but overall, we're really not seeing too much moisture, and that's going to be the story, I think, through the remainder of the evening. A few showers and thunderstorms, maybe a rumble of thunder, but I would say more showers than anything if you are getting out and about through the remainder of our Tuesday. That stalled frontal boundary that was parked on top of us late last week into the weekend has now shifted to the south. You can see there's that area of low pressure that I was just talking about. That's going to slowly drift away. But this front, it's really not going to go anywhere. It looks to wobble actually back onto the north as we progress through the next 7 days. So it looks like it may actually start to help our rain chances come back up once again after being a little more normal, a little more typical for early September as we progress through the rest of our work week. Right now, where we have seen more sunshine, temperatures are up around 90 in Gainesville, the same for Claremont, but notice the East Coast, it's a little cooler, and that's also aided with that onshore flow there. 84 in Daytona Beach, middle 80s in Cocoa. We have a 83 for those of you in St. Cloud. Overnight, we'll dip back into the low to mid 70s. We'll see any shower activity fade away. I don't think we'll have too much at all, and we'll see that cloud coverage start to diminish as well. We'll see likely a mix of clouds and stars, a little more sunshine to start, and then tomorrow, chances for rain aren't all that high. We're expecting highs close to normal, around 90, a little cooler again with that east-northeasterly breeze near the coast, but I still think there's going to be the potential for at least a few showers and thunderstorms. But with the help of that dominant east-northeasterly breeze, that sea breeze collision will likely happen a little farther to the west. I think the shower chances will be a bit higher around I-4 and closer to the Gulf versus on the Atlantic side, but we'll still have those chances there as well. If you have plans to hit the theme parks, maybe have a Hollywood Studios day planned. We'll have temperatures back into the upper 80s by 1 o'clock, nearly 90 by 4 with a few showers and thunderstorms possible. Then I think as we get closer to the fireworks time, we'll see those showers and thunderstorms start to diminish, and we'll see some clearing. We'll see that here on Futurecast. This is our Fox weather model through the remainder of the day. You can see any shower and some thunderstorms that are out there diminish as we head through 8, 9 o'clock. Still may see a stray shower near the Cape, near the Space Coast as we head into the wee hours of our Wednesday, but overall looking drier. But notice we still have some hit or miss showers and thunderstorms through the evening commute tomorrow. Not all of us seeing rain, and some of us will stay completely dry on our Wednesday. Then those will fade away once again. But Thursday, it's looking like we're going to have another disturbance moving from the Gulf. We'll have that in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and that should start to reinvigorate our shower and storm threat once again. Now, the other story is the tropics. We now have a high chance of development here in the tropical Atlantic with this wave that has moved off the coast of Africa. It's looking like we're going to see this development over the next few days. Could have a depression on our hands by the latter half of this week as we approach the end of the work week, and we may have a Gabrielle on our hands as we head into early next week. So that's something we'll watch closely. But thankfully, looking out at the searing pattern in the atmosphere, this will likely not impact the U.S. We're still too far away. We could have some indirect impacts maybe, but it's something we're going to keep tabs on and watch closely nonetheless. Now, our Fox 35 Storm Team 70 forecast shows temperatures warming up as we start to see high pressure build in once again, lower 90s as we head through Saturday. But notice our chances for rain, none of that high, but it's looking like that front starts to push back to the north as we head into early next week. And I think that will lead to more tropical moisture pooling up across the Sunshine State, Garrett. So it looks like higher rain chances early next week. But overall, I'd say this weekend looks a little better than how the last couple of weekends have fared.
Yeah, funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. Why did it have to be on a holiday weekend? I wish we could have changed that with the snap of a finger, but sadly, no dice.
Yeah. Well, you could have changed it on the forecast. It might not have actually changed what happened, but
would have felt better. We looked at it and said, hey, it's going to be a pretty good weekend.
yeah, and then just let everyone find out. Yeah. Probably wouldn't go over too well. We don't do that, by the way, and we don't condone it, just to be clear.
Yeah, most definitely not.
Well, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it, man.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. More tension between Governor Ron DeSantis and state attorney Monique Worrell, who is the state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties. During his news conference in Orlando earlier today, Governor DeSantis criticized Worrell for not being gung-ho enough and not prosecuting fentanyl-related cases as he believes she should. Here's what he said.
So a couple things. So I would draw a distinction between rank and file law enforcement and the law enforcement agencies in Orange County and the state attorney in Orange County. She obviously is not gung-ho about doing what needs to be done. And, we've obviously held her accountable in the past. She's back. And so, we have to see. But I think that they are on law enforcement rank and file. I think a lot of those folks are working really hard. The reality is it takes two to tango on this. You could have the best policing in the world if you don't have a prosecutor who's really going to be strong on bringing these. Like, for example, Sheriff, how many homicide cases have you guys had with the fentanyl?
Just shy of 50.
Just shy of 50. If that were in Orange County, would they have a chance to have gotten all those charges, homicides? No way, right? She just wouldn't do it. her approach is a liberal approach to, I would say, fighting crime. To basically, her approach is to not be as strong as we need to be, and to have a thumb on the scale in favor of the defendants. So these guys are bringing people to justice. They're treating them like the murderers that they are in Seminole and Brevard and in other parts of Florida. You're not seeing that here. So I don't blame law enforcement for that, the people that are in the sheriff's departments or the police departments, as much as I think it's a function of the prosecutor's agenda. Now, you get elected, you can make judgment calls to a certain extent, but there are limits to that discretion. And when these prosecutors, Soros-backed, have done where they've exceeded their discretion and ended up neglecting core duties, I've removed them from their posts. And that's something that I have no doubt that what we've done in that regard has saved lives. I have no doubt that it's saved lives, 100%. So we're going to be ready, willing, and able to do what we need to do.
That was Governor DeSantis making those remarks at his news conference earlier today about the SAFE program, which is a state program to help law enforcement when it comes to fighting fentanyl. Well, this afternoon, State Attorney Monique Worrell fired back at the governor, saying that he is going off his feelings and not the facts, and she gave some updates on the prosecutions when it comes to fentanyl-related cases from her office, and said that Governor DeSantis was just trying to score some cheap political points, while that is not the reality of what she says her office is doing when it comes to these cases.
It is always really important to me that the community have the facts. And there are a lot of politicians who will say a lot of things, but if you remember me from my first administration, which we affectionately refer to as 1.0, I've always said that facts matter. They mattered then and they matter now. The fentanyl crisis is devastating families across Central Florida, and it deserves solutions, not political theater. Now, the governor has claimed that this office is soft on crime, and that's not only misleading, it's a dangerous distraction from the real work being done by the prosecutors in this office to save lives in this community. Prosecuting fentanyl cases is not about politics, it's about protecting communities. And when politicians try to score points, they do so at the expense of grieving families. My office has one priority: ensuring justice is served based on facts, evidence, and the law, not political narratives. To be clear, these misleading claims about my office have been pushed for years by a governor who relied on false data from a disgraced and now indicted former Osceola sheriff. The Ninth Judicial Circuit has prosecuted fentanyl trafficking cases aggressively and effectively. There have been approximately 100 cases since January alone that have received drug trafficking minimum mandatory sentences. 29 of those cases were of fentanyl traffickers, and 6 of those cases received sentences over 20 years in prison. Our records show that traffickers and distributors are, in fact, held accountable in this circuit. We also take a balanced approach. We pursue strong penalties for those who profit from distribution, while also supporting pathways to treatment for those struggling with addiction. If you remember the platform that I ran on, it was to do just that, to ensure that we help those individuals who are impacted and addicted to drugs, while also holding those who profit and benefit off of the suffering of those individuals and their families accountable. That has not changed. The facts tell the story, not the campaign slogans. Only politics could lead someone to saying something so misleading. We don't measure justice in sound bites. We measure it in lives saved and in traffickers held accountable. And of that, we have receipts. Fighting fentanyl requires a full system response, not just a portion of law enforcement on the front end, but also prosecutors and courts who can carry these cases to the finish line. In the cases that I told you about, with the 29 traffickers who received minimum mandatory drug sentences. Those were prosecutors, individual prosecutors who took those cases to court, some of them to trial, and it is a slap in their face to hear the governor of this state say that they're not doing their jobs. The governor has repeatedly emphasized funding law enforcement, but refuses to provide equal support to the offices that actually prosecute the cases. You can't fund half the system and expect full justice to be delivered. When prosecutors don't have the resources to match the volume and complexity of fentanyl cases, communities ultimately pay the price. My office has continued to do this work with limited resources, but the reality is that if we are serious about protecting families, if we're truly serious about protecting communities, then we must fund the entire system. Despite the distractions, I will continue to put people over politics. And I find it ironic that we are here today talking about the message that I send to the prosecutors in this office and to the community. And with that, I want to take you back to a meeting that I held with my prosecutors.
That was State Attorney Monique Wierel speaking just a little bit ago this afternoon from her office in Orlando, responding to those comments by the governor. She did show that video clip from a previous meeting talking about departures from mandatory minimums and basically telling her staff to follow the law. If you'd like to see more of that news conference, you can find that on fox35orlando.com. We are going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. The conversation over the rainbow-colored crosswalks, not just here in Orlando, but across the state, continues today, and we now wait to see what happens out of a hearing with Delray Beach, who has challenged the state on this. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger has been following this. She was inside that hearing earlier today, joins us live now via Zoom from downtown Orlando, outside City Hall, it looks like. And Marie, I see quite a bit of chalk on the sidewalks behind you as well.
Yeah, I'll flip you around so you guys can see it better. A lot of this was installed yesterday. I was out here then as well, actually talking with some of the protesters who we're drawing along the sidewalks. It's in two major areas. And this portion of it tends to have more written messages. So love is love, we're still here, and there's a message for FHP over there. I'll walk you over to the other side where it's more colorful drawings on this side of City Hall. Now, this is city property. The memorial outside Pulse, the crosswalk that that FDOT has painted over, I just learned is actually a state road. FDOT had approved that and actually funded the painting of it earlier this year because it had to be moved. And so the city says that they just don't have control over it. So this is what I was talking about with all of the chalk that's gone up. A lot of this done yesterday, some of it still done this morning. This followed the arrests of 4 different people over the course of 3 days right outside the memorial at Pulse. And the 4 people arrested, they are now out of jail. I was actually able to speak with one of them earlier today. He was saying that he has his ongoing legal fight, so he didn't want to talk much about that. But he says seeing things like this and seeing the people come together outside the Pulse Memorial, he felt was really powerful and inspiring. And he was out there today still talking with people, even despite his arrest, looking on at FHP officers who were stationed there and have been for the past couple of days, making sure that nobody from their view defaces the roadway. That's what people there are accused of doing for coloring in chalk over the crosswalk that had recently been painted over in black and white as the as the state is now demanding. And so that's what's going on here, is sort of a resistance to that demand that everything be standardized and that the Pulse Memorial be painted over.
Now, take us inside that hearing this morning where Delray Beach, who has been fighting this requirement from the state, what happened in that hearing and kind of where things stand with that challenge?
Sure. So the city of Delray Beach has what they say is a mural rather than, they say it's street art. It covers a larger portion of the street. They say that the crosswalks themselves are actually still by state standards. The crosswalks are still clear, and they say the mural affects the rest of the road, not what the state refers to as traffic control devices. The city also argued that because that is a city road, it is not up to the state to come in and paint it over. The state has said that if by tomorrow cities do not comply with their new mandate to standardize all crosswalks and all other traffic control devices, then they will do it themselves, that the state will come in and do it themselves, like what we've seen here in Orlando, that they will then bill the city for that work that they've done. And they have a threat to withhold funding that in some cases has already been approved by the state for things like public safety improvements to the roadway. Just as a side note, I did reach out to FDOT to talk about that today, about why they would withhold funding, particularly over an argument that they say is to improve public safety by standardizing the roadways. So that's the city of Delray Beach's argument. The state says that they are just moving forward to standardize everything and that this is not a place for political speech, that it is over safety, and they say they have all the authority in the world to do that. The city then argued about home rule. All in all, the push was that the judge said they both need to have their final orders in, both sides of this argument, by Friday. You may know that the state's demand that everything be replaced or painted over, the deadline for that is tomorrow. They said that if cities do not comply by tomorrow, they could have state funding withheld, and the state could bill them for going in and doing the work themselves. So because of that, there is a little bit of a delay, at least in the city of Delray Beach, to meet that deadline. So on Friday, they turn everything over to the judge. The judge will decide from there, but the state did stipulate that they won't paint over the city of Delray Beach's memorial before then. So I refer to it as a memorial because specifically, yes, it is a mural. It is a pride flag that they put up after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. I reached out to the city of Orlando to ask why they didn't go for a similar administrative hearing, why they didn't request one, because FDOT specifically says you could, why they didn't try to stop the Pulse Memorial from being painted over. They said, again, that is a state road. They said they only found out that it was going to be painted over when it had already happened. Crews came in the middle of the night to do that and did not notify the city that they were going to. So the city didn't even know to ask ahead of time. That being said, they did send a letter to the state requesting a change of heart and saying that this is not political speech, that it is in fact part of a memorial to the victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting. They also said that the city of Orlando says that they've gone ahead and taken care of 14 of the 18 roadways that the state is requiring be painted over. Those are the ones that they say they are responsible for. The other 4 belong to the state. And that's where we are now. So we're just waiting to see what happens Friday for Delray Beach, and we're waiting to see how FDOT responds to the city of Orlando's request about the Pulse Memorial.
It's going to be interesting to see, that's for sure, because it does sound like, from Delray's perspective, there seem to be some unique circumstances to that, as there are here in Orlando as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thanks so much, Garrett.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. On Tuesdays, we often take the pulse of Florida politics and talk about it with Kimberly Leonard, who is a political reporter. She's the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter that you can get in your email inbox every weekday. We had her on Florida Live this afternoon, our streaming show at 2 o'clock, from 2 to 3 o'clock here on Fox Local. And she broke down for us a lot about Bles'Syn Lightner launching his campaign for CFO and also today's special elections. But we began things by talking about that CFO race and some of the what to watch for with that.
Appointed to the job by Governor DeSantis a couple of months ago, and it was vacant because Jimmy Patronis ended up running for Matt Gaetz's old seat. So he's in Congress now, so there was kind of a domino effect that put all that into motion. But the governor, that gave him a powerful position to be able to appoint someone, and Ngolia is someone who's very aligned with Governor DeSantis, who was one of his chief defenders when he was in the legislature. And so his announcement to run for a full term is not a surprise. He was talking about it even before being appointed. But it does make it official. It does mean he can now, start campaigning on this, start doing campaign events, grassroots events across the state, and start raising money, obviously. So far, he is unopposed on all sides. but that could change.
What is what can we expect to see at the center of this campaign? Because he has been busy in his few weeks in office already.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the CFO job, it involves regulating banking and insurance and signing the state's checkbook, okay? But Angolia has made it kind of more interesting and flashy. He's been doing a lot of stops across the state, raking through local government spending, county spending, and city spending, and essentially he'll be releasing fairly soon, probably, different reports from across the state where he's going to be arguing that some of the local spending that has been going on is wasteful or fraudulent even. And so he's going to use that then to make the case that Floridians should be supportive of reducing property taxes, essentially saying, look, they've made a lot more money, they can spend a lot less if they just get rid of some of these wasteful programs. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what the findings say, but it's sort of similar to what Elon Musk did at Doge. And so he has been jumping off of that, even though it's something that he's been talking about, for almost 20 years, is government waste. But it really gives him a platform and a very simple message, probably, that a lot of people can wrap their heads around when they think about, okay, how could I pay less for housing? How could I pay less in property taxes? And so that is what he is building on his campaign. He put out a video, and I expect that there'll be events that he'll do in the coming weeks.
Kimberly, we had talked before about the proxy war that was kind of avoided by Gruters becoming the chair of the Republican Party. What happens now? Is there any chance there is kind of a challenge to Angolia in this race from a different Trump-supported candidate?
Yeah, there's a chance. I mean, here's where it gets dicey, right? Because so Gruters had been endorsed by Trump actually last year before the last election was even over with. And they were really staring down this proxy war with Angolia. And of course, President Trump is very popular in Florida. But when you have the perch of being in the position where you're actually doing the job, it's easier to run. That's why incumbents tend to do well, because you have that opportunity to show people what you can do. And you almost get free advertising by being able to go around the state and do it alongside the governor who remains popular. And so with Gruters at the Republican National Committee now, where he's chair, it means that that sort of proxy war between Trump and DeSantis has been sort of pushed aside. Now, is Trump going to endorse somebody else potentially for the job instead of Angolia? I don't know. We'll see. State Representative Kevin Steele, who's in Pasco County, is interested in the job. And he said if President Trump wants him to run, then he certainly will run. And so, with that backing, it could be significant. But it does seem that Angolia has really thought through what he wants his campaign to be about and how he's going to, sort of move. He's not just counting on, okay, I'm in the spot. He has a very clearly laid out campaign and message. And so for anybody, even with the president's endorsement, I think it'll be difficult. But if President Trump decides it's a race that he wants to get involved in and decides to spend time here, then that makes it very, very hard for Angolia. But we just don't know yet. And in fact, the White House told me they're not even sure.
It would certainly change the dynamics of that race. That is for certain. Speaking of elections, today is special election day for parts of Orange County, with a Senate special election and a House special election today.
Yeah, that's right. And these are two very safe Democratic seats, so that should give Democrats a little pep in their step, probably. They can expect to win these seats. It would be extremely unexpected if they were not to. But what happened was, sadly, State Senator Geraldine Thompson passed away earlier this year. And so her seat became available. And it was actually the primary that was a very sort of fraught, multiple Democrats were running. There was the eventual nominee, State Representative LaVon Bracey Davis, was also running against her brother. So it was kind of this family feud situation. But she is the one favored to win today. And in fact, she told me that the late State Senator Geraldine Thompson had told her that she wanted her to be the one to succeed her. So she, obviously has been in the legislature and is expected to win today. She's up against Willie Montague, a Republican who has a nonprofit geared toward young men in Orlando. And then sort of another piece of the dominoes falling here, because she is running for the state Senate, then that opened up her state House seat. And so she endorsed Rashawn Young in that race, and he's the Democratic candidate, ended up winning the primary, and he was also worked on her legislative staff as chief of staff. And so he's favored to win today, but he is up against Twan Lee, the Republican businessman in the area. And so polls close at 7, and I expect, because Florida counts things very quickly, that we'll know very soon.
Finally, Kimberly, before I let you go, what's next in Florida politics, and what should we keep an eye on?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is obviously whatever happens with Alligator Alcatraz, which is, the detention center that's in the middle of the Everglades that is slowly winding down. We're watching a lot of the court cases around that, and we're also watching to see what other detention centers sprout up as a result. And I think that we'll start to also see possibly some more announcements on illegal immigration. So I think that'll keep heating up, and that we'll probably see Florida continue to try to show the federal government that it wants to be supportive in that area.
We'll be right back with more Fox 35 News Plus after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It was a pretty successful first week of the college football season for a lot of Florida teams, and that includes UCF, who it wasn't the prettiest. We've talked a little bit about it yesterday, talked about it on Friday as well, but they escaped with the win, and so now they're looking to make some adjustments as they head into their second week and their second game coming up on Saturday against North Carolina A&T. That game set for a 7 o'clock kickoff on Saturday night at the Acrisure Bounce House. And so earlier today, we heard from offensive coordinator Steve Cooper, who talked specifically about the quarterback play, was asked a lot of questions about Cam Fancher and some of the adjustments as well, that not just we at this point I don't think we even know if Cam is going to play in this game. So a lot of questions about the adjustments though from the quarterback play when heading into this second week. And we also heard from defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, who spoke at this news conference as well. This was from just a little bit ago, earlier today, here in Orlando, ahead of this second game coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it was cool to see Tay come in and react. You know, he was ready to play, obviously. He had a good week of practice. But, yeah, the moment wasn't too big for him, and he executed when we needed to, made some really nice throws, and ran the offense pretty well. Obviously, being first game, there's a bunch of things that you expect from game one, and the biggest difference that you're going to make and relationship to getting better is going to be from game one to game two. But, yeah, it was good to see Tay go out there, and he obviously made some plays, and he did a good job. He got the ball where it needed to be and took care of the ball. There were some scary moments there, but he did overall handled the offense really well and came out with the win. So obviously going to be some stuff that we're going to clean up, and we have already cleaned up on tape.
When you look at the offense, it seemed the first quarter sputter a little bit. He had long drives, but you weren't able to finish those off. Were you pleased with how that looked, or do you feel like the tempo needs to pick up or something like that?
Yeah.
You need to see more from that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately there's a ton of different ways to attack that, but big picture, as you pointed out, we did sustain some long drives, which great. That's nice to see. Overcoming some of the things that need to be cleaned up from game one. We were able to do that at times, but when you have to put with penalties and there was like a 20-play drive together with no points, it's not acceptable. And we explained that to the guys, and I think they understand that we have to be more explosive, and you can't shoot yourself in the foot. Our big coaching points to these guys is 1, pad level, it has to come down. 2, eliminate the self-inflicted. It's hard to go on 20-play drives. And then 3, connect on your shots, You can clean up a mistake by being explosive. And at times we showed the ability to do that, but there are a couple things that are just inches away, and this is a game of inches that we have to connect on. It's always good when you put a long drive together, but you have to come up with some points, we want to score touchdowns.
Coach Ross mentioned that Taven had a different kind of fire under him when he heard the news that Cam Kentry was being announced as starter. He said that he hopes to see that fire more consistently throughout, especially off game time during practice. Do you see that kind of fire that would win?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. From what I saw from Tay, there seemed to be a new sense of urgency when we announced Cam as the starter. So, new sense of urgency. He just needs to be able to sustain that. He did a really good job in the week, like I mentioned earlier, in the prep. So, no one batted an eye when he went in. Obviously, tight competition battle to begin with. Those two guys they're good friends and they help each other out. So, it's good to see that those guys are both competing and Tay just. I think he's going to carry over and keep that same passion. That's what we're excited to see.
You just talked about progress from week 1 to week 2. What more do you need to see from the offensive line this week?
Like I mentioned earlier, the big thing that we talked about, and believe me, it's not just the offensive line, it's the whole offense in general, pad level, coming off and finishing blocks, playing through the echo of the whistle, which we stress that. And, for a lot of these guys with not a ton of experience, first game, I believe that this is going to be it's good tape to watch and it's a good experience to have, and we got to carry over into next week and beyond.
It never gets easy, and so we certainly was pleased that way. And there's a lot of things you got to clean up, and that was going to happen, win, lose, or draw. And so, start that process, as quickly as this past Friday, and obviously back on the grass, physically today. And but anytime you ask a coach, you think about the bad plays. You just do. You default to that and say, how can we let some of those things happen? And so, got to clean those things up, but give the guys credit for fighting and winning the game in the fourth quarter.
What were some areas that you were pleased with, I guess, in the game, and what were some areas maybe you said you cleaned up, but what were some areas that really stuck out that you really need to fix?
Yeah, I thought effort was good. I don't think it was elite. And the minute you pat yourself on the back for having good effort, you got to remind yourself that that's expected. But I thought we ran. I thought that gave us a chance. I thought we tackled for game one. The combination of those two things allowed us to get stops and allowed some plays that maybe sprung a leak but didn't turn into fatals because we knocked it down, as we like to say, and lived to play the next down. They don't get points for first downs. And so I thought, generally speaking, we did a nice job of that. I think that'd be one to highlight. One explosive is too many, and there's a couple examples. One from a schematic standpoint, where we didn't do a very good job handling a formation in the boundary that we got to get cleaned up. And then, a couple other instances where, and one of the conversations we had with the guys was, you can't wait for Saturday for it to become real. And I mean the job description. If we give you a progression, we see a play and a productive play attached to that job description. Otherwise, we give you a different job description. And so there's several instances of, you watch it on video, and this is a direct quote from a player to a coach. It's basically saying, oh, that's what you were talking about. You know, there's several of those moments, whether it's, you know, spilling a guard or leveraging a puller or a number of different things, most specific to the run game. And so one of the messages, you can't wait for Saturdays for it to become real. Otherwise, you'll just be a week behind every single time. And so lessons along the way. And, you know, probably my biggest frustration, I don't think we had a chance to play enough guys. And that has nothing to do with scoreboard. I think that has everything to do with preparation. And guys attacking the work week and saying, Coach, you need to put me in the game. We'll be a better football team if you do. Maybe in too many instances, just, you know, expecting that, you know, our job as coaches is to, you know, be friendly and find you a role. No, you have to earn a role. And so that's something that's we'll be better the more guys we get a chance to play.
Coach, you mentioned effort. Talk about the big defensive stop on fourth down by Jay Williams.
Yeah, it's just, you know, sometimes tempo is a double-edged sword from an offensive standpoint. Is, you know, there's so much chaos. Yeah, we can't get in the particular alignment and the adjustments we'd like to get into, but then you run the ball right into an unblocked human. But you still got to make the play, and so that's one of those guys, you know, one of the things we talk about is empty hands of the quarterback. Once you see empty hands of the quarterback, you put your foot in the ground. It takes 11 guys to stop the run. Now, that's the extreme of the extreme, but I think it also speaks to Jay Will and just his it's building over time. He's only been with us, obviously, since fall camp. He wasn't with us in the spring, but you just kind of look at it through man, we kind of like having him in the game and kind of expect him to do something. And that was, to put it mildly, a pretty big play.
How do you evaluate the play of your defensive line and the pressure you got?
Yeah, not much in the way of drop back game, and so sometimes the first thing you look at is sacks, and we want more, you know, and so we got to find a way to be more disruptive in the backfield, and we expect to sack the quarterback more. Now, again, on that same note, they get a vote in terms of what those, you know, types of plays are. So it wasn't a big drop back game in terms of what they did, and so maybe not as many opportunities as you can have on a typical Saturday. I saw there was a level of disruption. Again, I think from a production standpoint, we expect to have more. We expect to have more negative plays, more 0-yard gains, and I think, you know, that kind of speaks to, you know, the seeing a play at the end of the progression that we give you. You know, I'm in the A gap, cool, but I want to make a play through the A gap. I'm in the C gap. All right, you're where you need to be. That's step one. Can I go make a play in the C gap? And that's not just the defensive front, obviously. But I think we can find more production from that group overall. I think they were solid, but I think their expectations for themselves, I think our expectations are a little bit higher. And you could circle back and say that's, you know, put them in a better position from a coaching standpoint too. So those are obviously things we'll look at.
That was defensive coordinator Alex Grinch here, offensive coordinator Steve Cooper answering questions from reporters today, talking about some adjustments and some things that, some changes hoping to make as they head into week 2. Looking for another win coming up this weekend. Again, that game 7 o'clock Saturday night. It is against NCANT at the Acrisure Bounce House. Well, we are out of time here on Fox 35 News Plus on this Tuesday. Going to go ahead and send things out to Studio A, where you can see John and Luann are getting ready for the start of Fox 35 News at 5. That starts in about 30 seconds right here on Fox Local. You also see Track the Tropics in the background. Storm Team meteorologist